It's a pleasure to speak to everyone here today. My name is Stephen Phillip, Cloud Services Director, Solution Architect at Svitla Systems. I'm joined by Ilya Reznikov, uh, Senior Cloud Architect, Europe Lead, with me here today. We're going to talk briefly about doing AWS migrations for like mid-size and enterprise companies. And this is the challenges, the solutions, the outcomes, the things that you need to do and why you need to do it. And it's an important topic, especially in these days. So what are the reasons companies these days move to the cloud? There's a wide variety of reasons why that you would want to move to the cloud. And I'm going to try to briefly go over all of these. So give you a sort of a baseline on a rationale, and really it's a business driver. It's not really a technical driver, it's a business driver. The first main reason I would say is agility and staff productivity. Moving to the cloud brings a whole new set of things that a staff can learn and do. And you as a business will be able to go much faster by using the cloud, and specifically AWS. And I'm going to briefly describe that more in my next slide. The next reason listed here are basically end of life of hardware and software. And typically, if you're an enterprise or a mid-sized company, you're probably running lots of software or hardware, either in a data center or co-location center. You probably have a meeting with your procurement staff at least every 2 weeks to go over software, purchasing, assets, end of life specifically. I remember when I was at Trekland Wireless, I used to be in those meetings. That is a big deal, especially when you're working at enterprise. You got, hundreds of people working on software, needing tools to do their jobs, right? So understanding those end of life, understanding the costs associated to it, and understand where they're running is a driver also to move to the cloud. The next big point here is improved security and operational resilience. I live in Florida. I'm currently in Miami, Florida. We just had a hurricane that went to the western part of the state. I can only imagine those people and businesses that are basically on-prem in Fort Myers, Florida, and while they're underwater. It's going to be very difficult to run your business that way. And I'm going to talk more specifically about this topic in the next slide too. Going to AWS also can bring cost reductions, as you no longer need to make large capital investitures in hardware and software that you can't realize tax savings from until 2 or 3 years afterwards. Moving to AWS moves your cost model from basically capital expenditure to operational expenditure, and for many companies, that is a big win. A next big reason on why you would want to migrate to the cloud is data center migration or consolidation. Now, let's suppose you're a large conglomerate. You've got multiple data centers in different parts of the United States, Europe, Canada, etc. It takes a lot of time and money to maintain these places, these data centers, staff. If you could consolidate all of those into like specific locations and then extend those data centers to the cloud, you would see a huge reduction in your cost, and you would reduce your footprint, and it make it much easier for you to manage from an asset perspective, from a personnel perspective. So consolidation is a huge driver for moving to AWS and going to the cloud. The next rationale I would say is M&A and basically acquisitions. If you want to go global quickly, or if you're doing M&As, and if you're not in the cloud, then you're going to have to basically inventory that location, figure out what's there, what can be shut down, what can be continued, and then you have to eventually get rid of that facility. If you're already in AWS, it'll be much easier for you to do that inventory as you need to by bringing things that they need into the cloud or extending your cloud to those location centers. And simply also with AWS, you have data centers and all over the world. You can stand up equipment anywhere you need to. I'm going to skip digital transformation for a second and come back to it and say also, and then another driver for moving to the cloud is, I'm going to couch it here as IoT, ML, or new services. AWS allows you to bring in these new services very easily at a very cost-effective way and try it out without making a large capital expenditure. And then once you've kind of mastered it, you can then figure out a way to, do the proper spend as you need to, as opposed to being in a data center or being in your own co-location center. You're figuring out you may need to buy hardware, software, etc. to get going. It's a much bigger, longer ramp up, and it's a much more expensive ramp up. And then finally, I'd like to talk about digital transformation. A lot of people talk about digital transformation, and you need like enterprises, whether small, mid-size, or large enterprises, they need to be able to do this digital transformation. And really, what is digital transformation? Digital transformation is pretty simple. Making better products, bringing more products to the market, and reducing your costs. If you do those three things, you're basically doing a digital transformation. And you basically do those three things by moving to AWS. So in some ways, it's kind of a no-brainer to move to the cloud, because you will be able to build new products, make better existing products, and then reduce your costs by going to the cloud. So hopefully you have a good overview on why you need to move to the cloud. And I've kind of spent a lot of time on this slide because it's really important to understand the real business reasons on why you need to move to the cloud. I want to go more specifically on three specific points in terms of cost savings here: staff productivity, operational resilience, and business agility. And those are some of the points from the first slide here. Staff productivity. In a typical enterprise, whether it's a large scale, mid-sized company, in the quote unquote old days, you may have had an IT operations staff that was sort of siloed into partitions. One group doing storage, one group doing databases, one group doing Windows servers, one group doing Unix servers, one group doing networking, one group generally making servers, right? So it may have been partitioned into many ways. And sometimes, and those groups kind of worked in isolation, sometimes oblivious to the rest of the company and rest of the business, because, they kind of lived in their little bubble. And sometimes those people, especially in these mid-sized companies that have been around for a while, enterprises that have been around for a while, that have been in data centers, co-location centers for a while, those people, they kind of are static in their skills, or they know very specific things in their skills, but they don't really understand not just the other skills in the traditional IT operations space, but they don't understand development, they don't understand a lot of things outside of the business, right? So by going to the cloud, your staff has to get a base understanding of all the infrastructure in play, right? You have to understand storage, you have to understand servers, you have to understand Unix, Windows, you have to understand databases to a degree, you have to understand networks. And because you have access to that and you can control it as you need to, ideally through a console or through CloudFormation or Terraform as infrastructure as code. So your staff, by proxy of moving to the cloud, will have to skill up And by skilling up your staff, they grow as professionals. As a company, you have a more diverse staff that has more skills, which allows you to build better products, move that staff and put them into a more agile methodology as opposed to a traditional waterfall methodology where things were thrown over the fence to the next group. So staff productivity is a very, very, very important thing in terms of like deciding to move to the cloud. Your staff, just by nature of moving to the cloud, has to skill up, and they will become more productive. So that's a big win, especially for enterprise and mid-sized companies, because sometimes it is cost prohibitive to move out 50, 60, 70 people. Then to get them with, you can work with vendors like Svitla to skill you up, but eventually you need some people of your own who have skills, and this gives them the opportunity to skill up. The next big point here is operational resilience. Now, operational resilience means a lot of things, right? That also, if you're a shop, a big shop, you have a 24/7 by 365 presence. You're trying to minimize downtime. You need to make sure customers can get to your website, can use your IoT, can use your products all the time. Now, I worked at a large MVNO for a long time before coming to Svitla, and this was like the number one overarching thing. Customers should be able to come in anytime they want, and refill their service. And a lot of money in terms of hardware, software was spent just to have redundancy sitting. And most of the time that redundancy was sitting idle because you don't use it. Ideally, what you want is to have a data center that is growable and flexible. So if you need excess capacity, you have it. And if you have a disaster, i.e. a hurricane coming, you can easily migrate everything over easily, quickly, without, a mass movement of people or, having to put people in a data center and make sure they feed generators and put them at risk. It is a big thing, especially if you're running a 24/7 shop. You need to be resilient. You need to be able to have a robust disaster recovery. Otherwise, you're going to lose out on business and fall behind your competitors. And lastly, the last point I want to bring up is business agility. In today's modern world, there's a lot of competition, and it is much more fierce than it ever was. Even 5 to 7 years ago, the climate is much different. It's a much tougher economy. New companies are sprouting up and going after established companies that have been around for a while because you have the ability, you have the tools to do that right away. So business agility, especially for these mid-sized companies, enterprise companies, is very important. Now, a traditional way of doing business, the waterfall way of doing business comes up with an idea, they work with PMO office, they figure out kind of a rough budget for a project, they go in front of a project steering committee, they get approval for their project, they get approval for their funding. Now they've got funding, 3 teams start off right away, hardware, software, testing, right? Now the procurement cycle for hardware occurs, you got to get the equipment anywhere from 2 months. You may need to rack and stack equipment, there's another 2 months. So you may be 5 months out before you're ready to actually put software on a server or do anything with a network. That just is too long in today's world. You can't be sitting on a good idea and, wait for 5 months. You need to fail forward, fail fast, and Ilya Resnick MeasureComp's going to talk about that more specifically. And you need to move fast. If you don't, you're going to fall behind and you're going to lose customers. So business agility is the absolute one major driver for moving to the cloud, because you can spin up hardware in 15 minutes. You can get software on it in another 15 minutes if necessary. And then, hey, you could drive customers to it within a couple hours if necessary. And that's a big win, as opposed to the old days where projects would take months to come to fruition. So these 3 points in terms of the cost savings and the business gain that you get, and an intangible business gain, right, is so urgent and so important for migrations to the cloud, and should help drive you to going towards the cloud. And specifically, AWS has derived some statistics over the years. 31% average infrastructure cost, 62% IT staff productivity boost, 7.5 times fewer downtime hours, 3 times more features delivered per year. Now, the last point, let's take that specifically here for a second. Remember what I said about digital transformation? Digital transformation. Make better products, make new products, cost reduction. Those 4 bullets, they all apply here. You do this, you're going to be doing digital transformation. Whether you call it that or not, that's going to happen. So if anything, just the pure migration to AWS helps take you and gets you to that first step of a true digital transformation. So I've spent a lot of time on the first couple slides here, and I'm going to go much faster now. Talk a little bit more technical things, but it's really important that you really understand the business reasons and why you need to do this, right? And their motivations behind why you need to do it, because it's important from a business perspective, really a business survival perspective. And especially if you're a mid-sized company that you are still on-prem, or you're halfway there, or you're, kind of still worrying about what to do or what not to do. Hey, you have to do it. Otherwise you won't make it. So, okay, I want to talk briefly about why to use AWS to migrate your workloads. Obviously, AWS, there's so many customers who have gone through this, and Svitla and AWS can help you get you to where you need to go through. Obviously, you have so many tools and matures tools that both Svitla can use to help you navigate the pitfalls and the dangers of moving through that. Obviously, if you engage with us, obviously the senior engineer like Ilya would come in and help you go through that and do it in a thoughtful and planful way. And finally, there are numerous solutions, not just to migration, but like some places need to still stay in their data center, but also extend their data center to the cloud. And that's why it's so urgent to work with AWS, because they have a whole set of tools that allow you to run in this hybrid model. So I would highly urge you to, if you're in this process, contact us and we can have a conversation about that. Now, before we get sort of really deep here into a real technical sense here, you need to kind of work through a few things ahead of time just to make sure you're ready for this cloud migration. And sometimes it's, especially if you're an enterprise, it could be a multi-year process. If it's your smaller and mid-sized company, it could be a couple of months, but there's certain things that you have to do, right? You have to get senior leadership conviction, buy-in, and alignment that, hey, we need to do that. And there's a business justification, there's a business case for it, there's a cost justification for that. And obviously Svitla can help you to do that, right? Next thing is you have to have really quantifiable goals, and you need to understand, like, what are the specific reasons? Hey, cost savings, operational resiliency, these are like specific goals, and you should be able to measure them. And obviously as well, when you do the plan, when we help you do your plan, we'll help you define those goals. What are the goals? What are the goals for you and your organization at this time? Internally to your team, you need to basically drive accountability and have leads associated to it. And obviously, if you bring in Svitla to, help you with your migration, we can work with all those leads to help them get them up to speed if they need to, or basically be the hands and feet if your people are, can drive the migrations that you need hands and feet. Clearly, Svitla can provide that for you. And finally, like, when you get started, it's really about building like experience with time and not trying to overanalyze it. A lot of projects, a lot of big transformational projects in enterprises and mid-sized companies never get off the ground because people overthink it and just like spend so much time on what if doomsday scenarios, right? For something like this, moving to the cloud, hey, it's really about digital transformation. You either do it or you don't, or you basically die. So start forward with it, plan, but don't overanalyze this, and don't think of it as like a 6-year, 7-year, 5-year project. Hey, there are no more of those anymore. And in today's world, you've got to satisfy your customer. You have to delight your customers immediately, and you have to keep doing it. Otherwise, there are numerous options for them to go other places. So you may be wondering, like, what are the common questions that you have before you start this? Like, what's the business case? How do I get started? What do I need to move? I don't know what to move. I don't know what's running. Right? These are all really good questions. And the reality is we can help you figure this out, right? We've got senior people who have done these migrations. They've been in enterprises, they've been in startups, they've been in mid-sized companies that they've had to answer these questions, figure it out, and then apply them. So you can see that distinctly. So before I go forward here, I'd like to introduce Ilya Reznikov, our senior cloud architect here. I know he has a few words that he'd like to discuss.
Okay, thank you. As was mentioned earlier, actually, AWS provides a lot of features that allows us like remove classic environment problems. One of them is shared responsibility model. So it means that you become responsible for not off cloud, but what in cloud. So AWS has, widespread gear redundancy regions, availability zones, and they care about security, performance, stability of data centers. And the customer is responsible for what is going on inside the cloud. As Thibaut mentioned earlier, it allows like investigate more, experiment more, and give results faster, and actually at the end save money and allow get results. Also, AWS provides a lot of services. I believe it several thousand already services. Services actually could be like separate to different categories. Some of them, it's like preparation services as automated or manual one, where we need to go through some questionnaires. It obviously managed service, which cares about network, storage, security, machine learning, IoT, and other areas. And also it provides a lot of services which allows control, implement, let's say, create hybrid configurations, which we saw on this slide. It allows to collect statistic, provide some alarms, collect logs, provide notifications if something interesting happened. So a lot of these tools could be utilized for migration process. Thibaut?
Okay, thank you, Ilya. So it's, there's a wide variety of tools and things that you can use, and obviously senior architect like Ilya, we have plenty of them that could come and help you as you go through this process. Now, this slide may seem fairly busy, so I will try to simplify it for you. A migration has three main processes, right? An assessment phase, a mobilize phase, and a migrate phase. And it looks very complicated, but really it's simple and it is a complicated process, but it's conceptually kind of simple. In the assessment phase, you do a kind of a quick discovery of the environment. You build a TCO, total cost of ownership, and you build your business case. At that point, you can take that business case, ask your senior leadership, hey, this is the rationale, this is what it's going to cost, and then you can get funding and you can move forward with it. Svitla Systems, we've done a lot of assessments. We can help you with that assessment. And then let's say you get the funding and you want to go and mobilize. So in essence, this is where you build your detailed plan on what and how you're going to go about migrating your applications and your data center to the AWS. And then once you have that very detailed plan, obviously you move into the third phase, the migrate, where in the migrate phase, you basically apply the you move like the low-hanging fruit, you learn, you assess, you tweak the plan as necessary, and you go forward, right? So it seems like it's a very busy time. It would be a busy time, but really conceptually, you've got these three phases, and Svitla can help you through all of these phases. And I'm going to go a little bit more detailed into the assessment phase. There is a whole raft of assessment-focused tools that AWS provides that Svitla can help you navigate through. This will give you basically a readiness assessment. It'll give you a total cost of ownership for what you plan on spending. It will allow you to assess the capabilities of your staff, what you need to do to move forward. It gives you a governance model. It gives you a security model, and it'll help you, more importantly, once you get out of this, you get that justified business case that you can take in front of your senior leadership to get approval for. Or if you're the senior leadership, this is your validation. Yes, we think this is going to happen. Yes, this is going to happen. So it's a very important process, and Svitla, we've done many of them. We can help you through this. Obviously, the next stage here is mobilization. Now, you have done this assessment, so you have done a very light discovery of your system. You kind of have a justification. Now you're going to go into a much more detailed discovery and planning session. You're going to basically set up the cloud environment. You're going to help sort of start training up your people, build an operational model, and this is where you really define your migration plan. And I want to go a little bit more specifically into that. What is this migration plan, and how do you kind of do it? Again, another busy slide. I ask you to kind of look to the green box with the 7 R's. Now, obviously, since then, AWS has made an 8th R, but I want to go over these 7 R's because that helps you figure out your migration patterns for your apps, right? I'm going to quickly go over this, and I know Ilya wants to talk very specifically about this here. So here specifically, I'm going to go bottom top, and that's the level of cost as it goes. Hey, I've got an app, nobody's using it anymore. Hey, we don't need to bring it over. We just let it die. We retire, retain. Hey, it's a straight migration. Hey, we have a physical server here. We're going to set up a virtual one with same specs, same software. Boom, go about it. Now I'm going to group these next 3 kind of together, and then I'll group the top 2 together. Repurchase, rehost, relocate is really kind of like, I may have to do some tweaks, but in essence, things kind of stay the same. There are going to be slight differences. I just move them over to AWS. And then finally, refactor, replatform. Hey, this was written in such a way that doesn't take use of the cloud, is really old technology, and is just not, it just doesn't fit in a modern paradigm. You will have to either replatform or refactor it. And now I'm going to introduce Ilya, who's got a lot of experience in this.
Okay, thank you. Based on the first stage, when we use such tools from AWS as discovery services, we describe our infrastructure, our services, our application workloads, and it allows us to define how we will migrate particular application, or actually should we migrate it. So I believe that all participants has technical knowledge, so I'd like to consider example of database. So for example, we have some application which include Microsoft SQL database. And for example, if we review and decide that it's quite old application where we don't need it anymore and we could easily get rid of it, we could select retire migration plan, take a snapshot, and remove application and database at all. If we review it and understood that it works on very old version with some custom configuration, and actually it was created many years ago, and even company, there are no people in company who knows how it works, but it's still critical and useful application, we'd like to use retain a migration plan when we keep this application as it is. Probably we could think about set up some integration between this application and cloud services, if it allowed from security points. Or another case for such migration plan could be if this application contains some high security data where we need to keep it locally. In that case, we decide not to, change it and leave as is. Another, maybe one of the most popular and quickest migration approach is rehost. It means that we could take services as they are. For example, we could make a copy of virtual machines, move them to the cloud, set up network infrastructure between them, and quite quickly we get a cloud copy of our application. Another close, as Thibaut mentioned, close approach, which is called relocate. It's rather probably organizing our services without any significant change of it. So for example, recently we have a customer who already has a cloud infrastructure and became to us with request to improve the infrastructure. And one of step, we review it and organize, move to other other network infrastructure in order to do this infrastructure more robust, more with high availability, and scalability features. In that case, once again, our SQL database could run in one VPC, and we'd like just to move it to another VPC where other services will be deployed, and it became like more secure way, we get more performance and so on. Another migration plan is repurchase. Once again, it could be used if we decide or understand that currently running on-premise version is old, and we just need to migrate it to the newer configuration, but probably with not high efforts to change application. In that case, we could move our local on-premise SQL Server to purchase, for example, AWS RDS for SQL Server. So we stay on the same like engine, but purchase different license. We could remove, will not spend money on premise license for SQL Server. We get once again more secure, more performance, more robust application, which could be easily managed and so on. And actually, replatform is also quite close, where we move to another platform. For example, we could decide to move from SQL Server to, for example, Aurora RDS, which is, well, close, but they are different. But we will move to a native managed service provided by AWS, which could provide us also a lot of new features. But there will be some efforts with migration data, with setup, different configuration of usages data and so on. And maybe the most complex but also quite popular migration plan is to use is refactor or architect our application, where we actually not just move it to the cloud, but change our infrastructure, our architecture, which allows us to move from what we have now to cloud native applications with all modern architecture. We could move to microservices, we could utilize containerization, serverless services, and so on. I'd like to say that probably some migration plans could be applied together. So it doesn't mean that we need to choose only one of them and stay with it. Also, we have like additional migration phase, which could be called revisit. So times to times we need to revisit our configuration and probably do some other migration waves, which Thibaut will consider a little later. Thibaut.
Thank you, Ilya. I appreciate it very much. And Ilya is an expert at this, so Svitla has a lot of experience doing this and helping you figure out the right migration patterns for your vast set of applications. And finally, the last stage is after you have your very detailed plan on how you're going to do it, and you need to actually start executing it, which is the migrate phase. So in here, obviously, with the plan, you migrate your application, you track the performance, and then you figure out your operational needs to support it going forward. And it may be, hey, it doesn't work exactly perfectly the first time. You take it back, you tweak it, and then you deploy it again. Typical in a technology system, there could be a feedback loop, but then you start doing that through your entire sequence of applications. As you move forward, you get better and you get faster and you learn things along the way. And obviously, Svitla Systems is here to help you as you gain that knowledge, because we've done this a few times, so we can take you through some common pitfalls that you may fall into. So that is like a big point here. And I know Ilya wants to talk again here real quickly.
Thank you. Get back to the previous slide.
Yeah, sorry. My mistake.
No problem.
My mistake.
So as I mentioned, there will be several migration waves when we should separate our migration plan to separate steps with predictable time and with predictable results. And also depends on, and actually, as I mentioned earlier, architect and replatform is actually the best migration part, but it's the most complex, and that is why it shouldn't be used as the first migration wave. In that way, we could, depends on our architecture, which we decide to implement, we could use different tools. And migration application, Svitla has a lot of certified professionals who know how to use these tools. It allows us to use different patterns, different tools in order to like separate and make this migration smooth as possible and well, in controlled way. Also, we utilize a different application which allows to track application in the process. So it could be well, it could be some tools which check security performance, like AWS Guard Duty or Trusted Advisor. It could be tools which control and helps to do cost optimization, which Cost Explorer and or budgets. And it could be such tools which allows to check infrastructure, like, for example, where architected framework tools and other. And I know that Svitla provides such services as review infrastructure and review application with well-architected tools in order to define high risk and middle risk and improve application. Thibault?
Yep, thank you, Ilya. And obviously, Ilya is a certified solution architect, professional solution architect. So he's well versed in this, and obviously, we'd love to talk to you about, well architected AWS systems and help you on your journey. I had mentioned earlier about hybrid solutions where you may have to still reside in your data center for legal or compliance reasons. AWS has a whole set of tools that can help you migrate data over there and bring you the benefits of both the on-prem and the cloud, so you can extend your data center and then basically move it very quickly and back. So we're experts at that, and obviously if that's your scenario or situation, let us know and we can try to work a game plan that will support your hybrid environment. So finally, I'd like to talk briefly about, like, once you've developed this roadmap of to the cloud, and you're in the cloud, as Ilya said, you may have to refactor a lot of your applications. And because you want to take advantage of, like Ilya said, a lot of the modern features, and you want to do microservices, you want to use Docker containerization, all of these things can help bring business agility. And once you've done that, and once you've done this migration, you may have to look at modernizing your applications in general, right? And obviously, Svitla Systems is a master of that. So in essence, even before there was cloud, people were rewriting or rechanging legacy applications. So the sweet spot of Svitla, and that's a nice little tongue twister, is modernizing applications, right? Basically helping you changing it into microservices, containerizing it, and helping you sort of bring yourself at a much faster rate of deployment, much faster rate of going features into the market. Because in essence, again, in the end, it's about making better products, bringing new products to the market, and reducing your costs. And you have to, and you'll need to modernize your applications after doing this migration into fully cloud or hybrid model to continue to do that. So Ilya, sorry, I want to bring that back to you. I know you wanted to make one more point about business agility and moving fast.
Yes, according to what we discussed earlier, Once again, moving to clouds allows us to experiment. It means that invitation and actually failure, unfortunately, there are like twins. And it means that if we try to implement new things and do great things, it means that we could fails. It's okay. We should like review, understood what's going wrong, and try another. But cloud AWS services in cloud allows us to use it well faster, and that is also important because when we are speaking about moving to clouds, we are speaking about costage. So it means that actually correct processes in cloud allows us to save money. And when you use cloud services to try new features, it means that you will pay for only what is consumed, nothing more. Then you may remove remove resources. And well, if you'd like to try another one, so you will create new one and pay only for those new one. You should not pay for what is left from previous attempts. That is why migration to clouds is a good choice for improving, a lot of points of business workload, and also where here also important details that it requires not only like change in technologies, it's also require change in culture of team. So actually, cloud awareness team, I believe it's a well topic for one more session. But well, it also should be included in migration.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ilya. Appreciate that very much. So like I said, the migration journey is assessment, mobilization, and migration. We can help you in all three areas. And obviously, we have a lot of experience with all three. And briefly, I just want to close with a small case study. There's a startup in the United States called Avalon AI. They are leaders in figuring out the opioid crisis in America, and they do a lot of machine learning models for figuring out how and why opioids are being prescribed and people are getting hooked on it from prescriptions. So a customer is trying to set up their production environment to run massive machine learning models. We came in, we helped them get into AWS to help them scale and grow the company. Obviously, they're able to onboard numerous data sets, huge amounts of data sets that allow them to get deep insights on, doctors, hospitals, regions of the country, and specifically related to the opioid crisis. And obviously they're going for their second round of funding now. So obviously we're very proud of them and we're proud of the work that we've done with them. So I think with that, end the presentation here. I want to thank Ilya for taking the time out of his busy schedule to talk more details than I did. And I guess we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we got one, Ilya. So I'll ask the question here, and then you can give an answer. Okay, supposedly we already have a data center. What should we do with it during and after a migration to AWS?
Thank you. Well, it's a good question. Actually, maybe the short answer is you need to evolve it. So as we mentioned during session, migration is not like a one-step action. It's rather a journey. So it takes some time. As we discussed at mobilization and migration stage, probably some workload will be moved to the cloud and some workloads and application will stay on premise. It means that at that moment, we need to set up hybrid network configuration. It could be done in different ways, depends on, well, particular needs. And at that moment, your data center will still run workloads and application, and it means that you still need it. Let's imagine that, okay, you migrate everything which you need to the cloud. And it means that, for example, data center could still run some application which could be used like for offline scenario. Recently, we also worked with a client who has healthcare, who works in healthcare industry, and they need to provide access to their patient data anytime, not like in any cases. It means that they run offline scenario, and in that case, they still need their own data center. In other cases, you may sell out unused servers and get some money back. You may rent out servers to other companies where it's possible to rent out them as they are, or install third-party tools which allows to eliminate cloud provider UI. And well, in that case, you will get some investment to your hardware, software back.
Okay, thank you, Ilya. So do we have any questions from the participants? Okay, I see one more question here. Okay, I'll ask you, Ilya. I heard that cloud services are not cheap. Why do you insist it is worth it to migrate to the cloud services?
By the way, another good question. Unfortunately, we saw a lot of cases when cloud is not used properly. So it means that really in just a few clicks, any DevOps developer who don't understand the cost effect of consumed resources could create a huge performance instance, run it, and it will take a lot of money. But this particular developer doesn't need this instance. So on the one hand, it means that it's required to use resources properly. It means that we need to use right sizes images and optimized storage. We need to have optimized network configuration. We need to utilize what is called AWS pricing model. When depends on your needs, you may pay different money. So like a classical example, when you would move from on-demand instances to reserved instances, when you know that you will use this instance for 3 years. Or for example, if you need just here right now and a lot of instances, you may use spot instance fleet. Also, AWS provide like back services. It times to times it does price reduction, so prices are always became less. It provides more powerful new services and so on. Also, maybe the main reason of using cloud from costage point is actually you pay for only what is used, so it's consumption based model, and it allows you just use, pay, remove, and will not pay for it anymore. And like a short note, also AWS provides a lot of several services which allows optimize cost. Svitla also has experience in this area where we provide cost optimization services to our customers, where we analyze, provide some recommendation, and could improve your infrastructure.
Thank you, Ilya. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, I appreciate everybody's time today, and like Ilya said, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Obviously, we'd love to hear about what you're doing, and love to discuss with you migrations and how we can help you. Because obviously, migrations, application modernization, data analytics, and DevOps are the kind of the foundations of Svitla. And obviously, we would love to help you as you start your digital transformation. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Thibaut and
you.
Ilya. Thank you to all our participants who spent this hour with us. We'll share the presentation and the video in the takeaways as well as contacts of our speakers. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to them through LinkedIn and ask whatever problem you have or issue you have and for resolution. With that, thank you so much, everyone, and have a good day.